You are not going to want to miss today's episode of the My Dogs Are Barking podcast as we interview Jake Crain, host of the national sports show Crain Company, here on the show, talking about the SEC, expectations for Mississippi State, his time in Starkville, and a little bit on what goes into the preparation of his show during the season. Stay tuned. You're listening to the My Dogs Are Barking podcast.
God, I'm telling you, my dogs are barking today.
But man, my dogs are barking.
Well, welcome into the My Dogs Are Barking podcast. And on today's episode, man, we really do have a treat. You've heard me talk that really in this time, there is around, 7 to 10 different media members that I think are really doing wonderful work when it comes to college football and promoting the sport and getting people excited, especially during the times of the summer and during the times of the spring where there's not a lot to talk about. You have to kind of create content. And one of those guys is Jake Crain. And so we're so excited that Jake is joining us this evening. And as we record this, Jake, man, we are less than a month from the season starting. Like, how are you feeling?
Well, first off, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate you having me on. Second off, pour it all over me. I can't wait. The wait is almost over. We've got a little bit of preseason NFL that's gone on, but fall camp is upon us. I think it's going to be a crazy year in general, but with all the changes, not just conference realignment, but obviously the 12-team playoff. There's so much that's going on and so many more new conversations we're going to have because of how different this year is. Man, I'm ready for toe to meet leather. So I'm obviously pretty excited.
Oh man, it's going to be so good. We're at the point now where like we can almost taste it a little bit. We got through media days, and now that we're approaching this brand new season in the SEC, man, we're adding two other teams into this conference that obviously historically has been so dominant over the past 10 years. Mm-hmm. And as I was going through and people are making their predictions on what teams will look like, man, one thing I'm curious about, do you think with the additions of Texas and the addition of Oklahoma, is this conference going to be, once again, kind of a dog-eat-dog conference, where Texas takes out Georgia and Georgia undercuts LSU? Or to you, like, is there a clear front runner in the SEC to win the championship in the SEC? And then secondly, do you have an idea of how many teams you think will get into the 12-team playoff?
Well, one of the things, and having been in it, I coached college football for almost a decade. I'm almost over half a decade in Division I. I try to wait till fall camp ends to make my predictions because I got to know three things: who wins what job, who gets hurt, and who gets arrested. Once you figure out those three things, you can make a pretty good prediction. But I will say, and I've continued to say this really over the last 6 to 8 months. When I look at the Southeastern Conference this year, and obviously adding Texas and Oklahoma does not make it easier, it makes it harder. But I think there's more parity at the top of the league this year. And what I mean by that is I think more teams have a chance to actually win the SEC championship, not get lucky and maybe sneak up there, but they're actually good enough. And there's not that true one, okay, this is the best team and this is who everybody else is chasing, or that, it's Georgia and Bama. It's really 1.5. One of them's really good. The other one has a half of the team's really good, or a side of the ball's really good, which I think is going to make for absolute carnage, right? Because the deeper your conference is, the better your conference is, the less teams are going to have an uber amount of success. Therefore, I think you're going to get a lot of 9-3s out of the SEC this year. I've seen some guys predict 4, maybe 5 teams are going to make the 12-team playoff out of the SEC. I just don't see that because the SEC is so good, really from top to bottom, but especially from the top to the middle. I mean, you look at Georgia, you look at Texas, you look at Alabama, you look at Ole Miss, you look at Missouri. Tennessee can be sneaky if they can survive Nico's early mistakes. LSU, ton of potential for growth because there's no way the defense can be as bad as they were last year, but there's no way the offense is going to be as good. So kind of where's their ceiling? And then you look at a team like Auburn. That's very interesting as well after having flipped the roster in a lot of important places. Biggest question mark still quarterback. So just because a conference gets better doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have more teams. And I actually think right now, haven't officially done it, but I'm leaning toward more Big Ten teams actually making the 12-team college football playoff than SEC teams because they're more top heavy, right? You can really see Ohio State. You can really see Oregon. You can see a Penn State or an Iowa or a Michigan, obviously. It's going to be tough for the SEC to get 4.
That's an excellent point. And, when pointed that a lot of folks are already kind of penciling in Ole Miss, they're going to have a spot. Alabama, how could they not have a spot? But it really, when you start considering all the other, like as you mentioned, the Big Ten being so top heavy, those teams that are almost fairly certain to be in, those teams that most folks would even say like, oh yeah, I feel pretty good about Ole Miss, getting in there and solidifying. It's really not a foregone conclusion. That's what makes this so
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, well, every year we have a team that surprises us in a good way and a team that surprises us in a bad way. When I look at Ole Miss and you do the math problem of trying to project, all right, you look at their roster, how deep are they on both sides of the ball? How good are they in the line of scrimmage? How's the coaching staff? How balanced of a football team are they in all three phases? Then you look at the schedule. The schedule is obviously huge. Ole Miss, there's no easy schedule in the SEC, but there are lighter schedules and there are heavier schedules. Ole Miss got one of the lightest schedules. So if you're looking at a team, to go 10-2, possibly 11-1, hell, even 12-0 if they're able to handle business against Georgia at home. There's a couple other landmines. But I think Ole Miss is a pretty good bet, pretty safe bet. There's a reason they were number 6 in the coaches poll that came out here recently. I mean, I'm all over Ole Miss like a fat kid at a cupcake factory. I'm all over that one.
Well, it's interesting because obviously this is a podcast that predominantly covers.
Yeah,
Mississippi
I'm sure
State,
everybody's gonna love me now that I said I'm all over Ole Miss.
oh
I'm sure
no,
that'll go over well.
Believe it or not, we've got some old Miss listeners as well. We always welcome them. But it's interesting. Ole Miss is similar to, you remember the kid in high school that you finish the year and over the summer, maybe they hit a growth spurt, they start working out, and now, man, they have the ability, like the look that they could ask out the really pretty girl to the prom. The problem
Yeah.
is they've never done it before.
Yeah.
So they've got all the things that are there, but will they take the next step? It's going to be exciting. And flipping on the other side of that, the complete other side of the coin is Mississippi State. Jeff Lebby comes to Mississippi State from Oklahoma with high-powered offense and really something to get some exciting juices flowing in Starkville, taking the Mississippi State job. But obviously, I live kind of in this circle of the Southeastern Conference. I actually live in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and
yeah,
so
you're like
I'm
Owen Wilson
curious.
behind enemy lines. You're just
Yeah,
looking for that
man.
deep in chair.
Oh, dude, wow, I'm freaking out back here. So when you think about nationally, what are people perceiving about Jeff Lebby in his first season at Mississippi State? I've heard so many things from the people who live here, but do you kind of have a thumb on that, on what people are kind of taking from it?
Well, I think nationally, a lot of people are excited because Lebby's, an exciting name because the style that he brings. It's a fun system. It's fun to play in. It's fun to coach in. It's easy to be confident in. But I think the way that people are looking at nationally is like, look, not a lot of people know how it's going to go year one. We can sit up here and go down Mississippi State's roster. There's some good spots, but there's not enough good spots. And I think Jeff Lebby, and I interviewed him at SEC Media Days, he'd tell you the same thing. I mean, look, football is a game that is won by players while coaches watch and talk about it. I've seen brilliant coaches and play callers look like idiots because the players weren't good enough. And I've seen the opposite be true. Really bad coaches look like geniuses because they had better players. Until he gets the players in there, they're not going to be able to win the way that Mississippi State fans feel like that Jeff Lebby and feel like they deserve to be able to win it. They will, I think, with Lebby there. They just don't have the cats right now, but this is where you build it. This is why I tell Mississippi State fans, yeah, look, Ole Miss right now, that they are in their prime. They're looking good, right? They got a chance, most likely going to make the playoff. This is the highest of highs. Lane Kiffin's over there. It's going great. But you don't have an awful situation going on over there right now either with Lebby. And if anybody knows the state of Mississippi, understands the Southeastern Conference, how they want to build it because they've been around guys building it long enough to be able to really formulate their own plan. I mean, I think Jeff Lebby's top shelf. And again, it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. Kids are going to want to play in that system, right? Especially when you start seeing the numbers that get put up. And it's not like just the air raid where you're dinking it and dunking it with Will Rogers. It's a substitute for the run game. No, it's a little more down the field than that. It's a little more exuberant, I think is the right word for it. And I think it's a little more of a balanced offense, which is what Mississippi State needs. So nationally, I don't think people are like, oh, here comes Mississippi State. They're going to, like a phoenix, or rise from the ashes year one. It's kind of a trust but verify and see if Lebby is what a lot of us think he is.
Yeah, and the Bulldogs have not had a wide receiver drafted since 1995.
Yeah,
You
since
think
World
about the
War II.
recruiting Oh, yeah, it's rough, man. So think of the recruiting battle. I mean, that's so easy for a coach to be like, "Oh, look, Mississippi State's recruiting you to be a wide receiver." But like, here's the black and white. Here's the truth in it all is no one's been drafted since that point. So yeah, he has an opportunity to do something that has not been done in a long time. And
Well,
and for Mississippi State, go ahead.
yeah, well, if you're a wide receiver, I mean, if I was a chef and the best dish I made was hamburgers, if Hamburger State offered me a scholarship to go make hamburgers there, I would probably go there. Like it just makes sense, right? Go into a system that fits you. And if you're a wide receiver and if you want to put up numbers, who got drafted when, none of that matters. You go in there and ball. You're in the SEC. They're going to find you. You're not going to be hard to find. So you want to play in a system that puts you in a position to be able to do what you've always dreamt of and what you've always wanted to do and to reach those goals. It makes it a lot easier, when you're running the race that's the smartest for you. And if you're a wide receiver, you're a quarterback, or you're an offensive player, or even an offensive lineman that's going to zone block, that's going to have some gap scheme blocking, that's going to have to pass protect and understand what's going on. Those are kind of the unheralded things that you really don't hear about.
I can see your coaching and recruiting roots in there, man. You got me fired. I think I'm going to sign with Mississippi State now.
Well,
That
yeah,
was
I mean,
excellent.
look, it's again, I mean, I don't get if I want to make everybody happy, I'd sell cookies and candy for a living. I'm just going to tell you what I think. I only know four things, and they all start with F, so I might as well tell you about the ones I know.
And you a couple months back, towards the end of the baseball season, got the opportunity to go to a baseball game there at Dudy Noble Field, and baseball is really the only main thing Mississippi State can hang their hat on. Can you just tell us a little bit about what was that experience
Dude.
like for those who have never experienced it?
Well, man, I grew up in a college town, and so got invited. We have a lot of Mississippi State fans that listen to our show, and I said I'd never been to Starkville, and got invited by a buddy of mine in sports media named Bart Heitch, who played basketball, obviously at Mississippi State, to go to the Mississippi State Alabama baseball series and the doggy derby, like the wiener dog races. And my dog, I got to bring my French bulldog Manny, and he was the celebrity dog of the day, so he's still royalty. Every time I drive close to Starkville, there's a police escort waiting on him. Now that he's royalty, but dude, I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away. It's a Major League Baseball stadium and it's perfect. And the lounge, man, y'all almost had to roll me out of there after the game. I ate so incredibly good, but it was that college town vibe, man. I'm telling you, Starkville gets a bad rap. And I knew it was going to be great. I knew it was going to be great because I love college towns and that's my vibe. But went to Dave's Tavern as well. They showed me all the kind of the hidden spots. It was, man, I'm definitely going to be back. I got to come back for a football game.
Of course, man. Bring your earplugs if cowbells annoy you. If not, man, just enjoy the ride. It's a
Oh, I'm
good
just going to
time.
bring a cowbell. I'll just put
Oh
earplugs on
yeah.
the cowbell.
There you go. Well, and lastly, Jake, and thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
I think our listeners would be interested to know, during the season, it's got to be bang, bang, bang for you guys. Can you guys kind of take me on a week of prep? It's Monday. The season is starting. What is the preparation like for
Yeah.
all of the work you're doing during the season?
Man, it's a lot. Like we cover all the sports. But when football season gets here, like it's y'all know what time it is, college and the NFL. But basically the way it works is it's a 7-day a week job. There's football on all the time, especially when the NFL starts. And then you got Monday night football as well. And then you get Maction and Fun Belt and all that stuff that happens during the middle of the week. Outside of Wednesday, you got Tuesday, or outside of Thursday, excuse me, you got Tuesday, you got Wednesday. Basically, man, I watch. It's crazy. I've only been doing sports media for about 4 years, and so I've pretty much got it down. Just starting on Monday, let's say going into week one, we do our predictions the last week. So we'll do ACC Monday, Big 12 Tuesday, Big 10 Wednesday, SEC Thursday, then who we got making the playoff, winning the Heisman, win the national championship, all that on Friday, going into August 24th, and I will literally have the YouTube TV multi-view. I mean, I'll be doing my research all week because we bet too. We're sponsored by betonline.ag. And I mean, we wanted a godly amount of money last year. We were over 50 units, plus 50 units between the three of us betting. So I do my research. I watch. I keep up with everything that's going on. Again, I've been in the buildings before, so I kind of know different things to look for. We call it winning the water cooler on our show. But man, it's funny. My wife, the first football season we were together, I'd have all the games up on the multi-view on YouTube. Then I'd have laptops up. And I just watch. I watch and I digest, and I literally go the whole day, and she'll look at me and be like, "Hey, you realize like 7 hours went by today and like you didn't say a word. You and your brother just stood up and watched all those games on the TV because I'm having to watch them the way that I need to watch them to be able to remember what I need to remember." So I'm very blessed. I've got a really good memory. So people ask me all the time how I'm able to remember those names. I don't know. I'm on the spectrum somewhere. They just don't know where. But no, man, it's just a lot of research and a lot of watching and digesting. It is pretty cool though. Like when my wife comes in, she's like, "Hey, I need you to do this," and I'm like, "I'm watching the game." Like I literally have to do that for work though. It's what pays the bills. So it's a built-in excuse. It's fantastic.
I'd say you're a blessed man.
I
Awesome,
am
dude.
blessed,
Well,
and
hey,
she's
I'm
way
gonna
better looking than me too. So it's a good situation.